It is Georgia and Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl college football playoff quarterfinals, and a classic, kind of a throwback. Georgia won a national championship in that city against that team. And maybe one of these two teams wins the national championship as well. Brent Rollins and Dayne Young from UGAsports.com. Now over 50,000 YouTube subscribers. Thanks, everybody, for supporting what we do. Tops among all Georgia outlets. And we're just grateful for that. And if you're not one of those people, want to do something that helps us out to continue to provide this free YouTube content for you, click that subscribe button, like our stuff, and share it with your friends. And then support ASW Distillery, Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce, and Breda Pest Management. Brent, Notre Dame's defense, I mean, Indiana had nothing for it in that game. Well, I don't know exactly what that means for Georgia, but we're here to introduce our audience to what Notre Dame is as a team and how Georgia can exploit that, with the understanding that Gunner Stockton will be leading Georgia's offense, and this is a first-time start for him. So that's a tough task against any team. I think it's a tough task against this particular defense because if Georgia's limited in passing, this is one of the best secondaries in the country.
Yeah, and how they play. I think that's the biggest thing with this game, that if you're looking at something for what is it that might not necessarily scare you, but it's how they play. They're going to play man-to-man almost all the time. I mean, they do some variations, and they'll likely do some things because Gunner obviously being a new starter. But their secondary is good. I will say its depth is very young at this point. Their defensive line depth is potentially weakened a little bit. Riley Mills got hurt in the game against Indiana, didn't play the rest of the game, and like Freeman said, hey, it's like not season ending, but we'll see. So he's just, who knows? But they had just gotten back Howard Cross, who was a great player. He was a great player for them, because you need all of that, I think, to stand up and hold up against as a run defense against Georgia's offense in the way that I think they can run the football against Notre Dame, because certain teams have had success running against Notre Dame, and then they get into passing situations and the secondary just takes over. But in the end, it's a very aggressive defense. I think that's the overarching point of their defense.
Leading interception getter Xavier Watts, All-American safety.
Great player.
Going to play on Sundays for sure. Going to be a high pick.
Schuler's good too.
Yeah, they're good across the board back there. I would say, Texas gets a lot of that on secondary as among the best in the country. This group is also among the best in the country, maybe even better. We'll see. A couple interesting names just for if you watch college football for a long time. Jordan Clark, son of Ryan Clark, ESPN analyst, former NFL player, and then one that I'm not seeing him here. Let me get tackles up here. Bryce Young had a really good game against Indiana. That's son of Bryant Young, which is NFL Pro Football Hall of Famer. But you were just mentioning when it comes to sacks, Riley Mills is the one that was injured, so maybe he's returning and hobbled. They just got the Howard Cross back, as you mentioned. And overall, just with tackles, Kaiser, Bowen, Osbury, this is a good group. They're physical.
Linebacking core is solid, very aggressive.
If there's a weakness to me, Brent, just small on the defensive line compared to a lot of the teams that Georgia typically plays.
It's edge. And we're going to point it out in the video, because Indiana's tight end actually had the highest run block grade and took care of the edge players on Notre Dame pretty consistently throughout the game when they wanted to. Indiana's plan on offense, by the way, just so perplexing. Didn't have crossers and man beaters, and they had some success with certain run game concepts that they literally didn't go back to at all. I mean, it literally looked like they just showed up and like, hey, let's just get through 4 quarters and we were here and tip of the cap. But obviously a lot of Notre Dame dictated all that and did their part. But Indiana definitely didn't try to really offer much of a fight, that's for sure.
We're going to show a couple games here. We want to start with Louisville. That's among the best passing attacks that we saw against Notre Dame this year. Maybe that and the USC game with Maeva.
Yeah, I mean, that's there, but mainly wanted to show this because, one, of how aggressive they are, and two, guess what Georgia has now? Georgia has a QB that can pull the ball and run it. And there's, end up being a turnover, by the way. But still, this is something like with Carson Beck, you wouldn't have to worry about this play at all if you're a Notre Dame defense. And you wouldn't, by the way, you as Georgia, you wouldn't be able to hurt it with the screaming defensive end down the line who thinks he made a tackle and lost it. But now you can. Like, that's the main reason to show this is you have that element now. I don't think Gunner's not a take it 50 to the house element, but he can go get 15 or 20 if it's there and keep the chains moving.
There is the element of the unknown with Gunner, that there's just not a lot of tape on him for Notre Dame to look at.
Very much so.
Maybe going into the high school tape to see what he did there. And they may know him from recruiting. I doubt that he considered going to Notre Dame, but coaches change all the time. All right.
When we talked about being aggressive, all right, first thing, you saw number one following them. When in doubt, they're going to play man, and they're going to bring pressure. It's just what they do. And by the way, they do a great job of disguising it, even though they're playing man. Because you see here, this ends up being a four-man. They got 5 at the line, 4-man pressure with 2 guys. The defensive end actually drops off and kind of plays the back. He's playing the back, but not really rushing. And they do a great job of finding ways to get free rushers. And when you look at when Stockton had the big interception against Texas, got blitzed.
And was trying to throw the ball away.
And the thing is you think, okay, well, when you blitz a young QB, sometimes it makes them, hey, I know exactly where I can go with the ball, but they play very good man coverage behind it. You have to instantly win or know where it is you want to go with the football. And I think Notre Dame blitzes at about a 41% clip, top half of the Power 4. I bet that number goes up in this game, especially on third down.
2 of the better defensive minds going off against each other in this game with Kirby Smart and Marcus Freeman.
At the head coach position, the defensive backgrounds, very much so, yes.
Defensive-minded head coaches who are likely going to tell their quarterbacks, just don't turn the ball over. We can win this game if you just don't turn the ball over.
Sacks are better than interceptions.
Yep.
Again, aggressive. Linebackers are very aggressive. Like, coming downhill consistently. You saw it against Indiana. They cover up. I actually think you can get them in the run game a little bit because of some of that over aggressiveness from the linebackers, and we're gonna show that a little bit here as well. But like, they play downhill pretty consistently, and you look across the board. By the way, for the most part, that's man coverage again. Like, they play cover 1, which is single high safety man across the board more than anybody in the country, and they let Watts hang out in the back. Though sometimes they'll rotate him down. Mess around with him and Schuler, but for the most part, it's usually Watts that is hanging out in the back and making plays as a free safety. He had the interception early against Indiana.
One of the things that I think is in Georgia's favor is that Nate Frazier, do you remember early in the year where Frazier would try to be high school hero a little bit and run a little bit more horizontally to try to create lanes that would work in high school?
Too much bounce.
We've seen him get more vertical north and south. You have to do that against Notre Dame, even if it just means you get 2 yards. They're going to be, because of how aggressive they play, I don't think you're going to run away from them to the edge.
No, I think they're going to, and you saw it against Indiana, they either stopped them cold or there was a massive hole in certain runs. Because Indiana actually had, I think, 4 or 5 10-plus yard runs. They just didn't have anything else after that because of their play caller's propensity to just run up the middle in a way.
You see the score here, Louisville needing points to climb back into it. And
if you're going to run, go ahead.
We know that Mike Bobo and screen game and a new quarterback, it's going to be in the arsenal.
Yeah, and I think it's just because of the way they play and how aggressive they play, especially one. One's really aggressive, by the way. I think Georgia's going to have to do some sort of action off of that, not just get it and throw it. Because I think their aggressiveness. Now, you would think, hey, against a team that plays a lot of man coverage, if we hit the screen and get through, big play. But again, they play it really well. So I think Georgia's going to have to have some sort of play fake action away, running back action away, fake one way, go the other, that kind of stuff to mix in for their screen game.
Could you fake to a QB power and run up the gut?
like our RPO type stuff, build the run game and the screen game together versus just true quick screen stuff. And we saw it in the SEC championship game. The quickness with which Gunner gets the ball out is nowhere near as good as Carson Beck. Like, it's just not. And that's because Carson Beck's so elite at it, not necessarily because, Gunner's grandma trying to get the ball out there.
You can go see the highlights of that on our Film Don't Lie after the SEC championship if you want more detail on the difference with which Gunner and Carson Beck get that ball out of their hands. Because I thought you did a really good job explaining that and some of the fundamentals behind it. There's also a chance that Gunner, with all the reps of 3 weeks, improves and gets a little quicker in some of those things. Yeah,
focuses on certain pieces. Because you think about him coming into that game, it's more about, hey, I don't want to screw up versus just letting it rip. So we'll see.
All right, here it
Talk
is.
Talk about aggressive early. This is the first play of the game, and look at them just bringing people at Indiana. And by the way, if I'm Indiana, how you didn't want to go play action and take shots early or get wide early and just I still can't believe how bad their plan was. But the big thing for Notre Dame, they finally got Cross and Mills back together in terms of the 2 interior defensive tackles. But also you see here a lot of run stunts. And you see their defensive line. It's not just like – so Texas is like, hey, now granted, Notre Dame is a primarily 4-down team. But they move and slant and, play – I'm lined up here and I'm going to play 2 gaps over, that kind of thing, to create confusion. Because it's not like it's not like Texas who's like, hey, I'm going to have my big guys in the middle just 2 gap a lot and own your defense or own your offensive line and not let you go anywhere. Notre Dame wants to create confusion amongst the front.
One of my favorite things to do when we just show, this is at the snap here, where's the green grass? Because that's where you're going to have guys be able to be open. And it's exactly what you said.
Not on the hash. This was the time. They called the game like it was a spring game. It was awful.
Yeah, pretty much saying
the coach in me was very mad at how Indiana attacked that game. Not by the way, Notre Dame dictated a lot of this. It's just more about, hey, do you want to try to be in this game or are you just happy showing up?
Yeah, early on, Notre Dame said, if you're going to play in this box, we'd love for you to play in this box. Please do
sure.
that. And this is
second play of the game. Again, look at the man-to-man press, and you get a sim pressure with the two edge guys dropping off. You force a back shoulder throw, tight window. Like, they play man coverage really well. The refs and how the officials call the usage of the hands in this game, how they call that early always matters in these type of games when you got a heavy man coverage team. But they find ways to create confusion and pressure. You've got 2 LBs coming here that both edge guys drop. A lot of sim pressures, man behind, single safety. Like, it's you got to know where your answers are if you're Gunner. And I think, unlike Indiana, the answers aren't necessarily going to be just go balls or back shoulder balls. They're going to have check down answers. The tight ends and the running backs, to me, are going to be ginormous in this game for Georgia, catching the ball.
I don't know where the line is between back shoulder throw and underthrow. I've never really known where that line is.
Just garbage throw.
Indiana was testing that hard in this game, which was, can we put it 5 yards behind the receiver and see if he'll come back to it in a way?
It's a lot of their game, and they did it well throughout the season, but when you play better teams, you just can't.
Yeah.
And then let's get 3rd and 13, and hell, let's throw the ball 7 yards short of the first down marker. RPO action, like 3 guys standing there, pressure brought. Like, look at all the guys in the line of scrimmage playing man across the board.
I think you're more disgusted with this Signetti plan than you were with Heupel with Tennessee when we reviewed what they tried to do against Georgia.
Yeah, because it looked like they didn't care. Like, that was, and I'm being very not nice about that. I get that. Just because it's frustrating to watch, because it's like, hey, they're doing these things. They're doing these things, and you don't have answers. But again, they play coverage very well. Like, one of the highest coverage grades, team coverage grades in the nation. They're going to force you to hit tight window throws. And by the way, first time starter at quarterback, a lot of tight window throws. Like, that's not necessarily something you want, but That's what Notre Dame's going to force Georgia to do, unless Georgia just destroys them in the running game, which I think not destroy, but I think they can run the ball on them.
I think it's tough for me to be sure on this angle, but I remember, if I remember right, you were talking about how committed they are just to single high safety. This is 3rd and 13 here. Like they're not changing what they do. They trust themselves in one-on-one coverage, and they're going to try to put pressure on Gunner Stockton in 3rd and medium, 3rd and long.
Very much so. And I think Lovett could be big in this game, winning quickly in the slot.
Yeah. I don't know that there's as much of Arian Smith over the top against these guys. Possible. We've seen it in postseason before.
Very much so.
2nd and 12.
So this is 2x2, 2 receivers on each side, and they bring split zone. And watch where the sort of over aggressiveness of the linebacker and the stunt from the defensive line creates a massive hole. So one linebacker runs stunt there, 34 is following the split flow with 44 coming across. 56, look where he starts and then gets widened out, and you create a crater of a hole for them. By the way, Indiana ran, so this is 7-0 early in the first quarter. I think they ran this action twice more in the game after getting I think they got a first down on this. But when you have that level of aggressiveness from either a defensive line or linebacker standpoint, if your call beats their call, you can get explosives against them in the running game.
And you start looking at this from Gunner Stockton's perspective of like, okay, but now what if I am able to have the option to keep it this way? Obviously, we have the hole, you go for it. But it's just, how do you use Notre Dame's linebacker aggressiveness against them? That's going to be Mike Bobo's task with Gunner Stockton.
Yep. I think you are going to see a lot of split flow action, either, by the way, from tight ends or receivers coming across, faking the zone play, and those guys getting into the flat real quick. Notre Dame actually defended it very well when Indiana tried it, I think, early in the second half. But I think Georgia's going to try to find some unique ways to do that.
2nd and 9, so they have a drive that's working a little bit. You start getting in Notre Dame territory.
Look at this. I mean, look at that guy come down and play the run. Like, he's, 13 yards off the ball at the snap, and then, boom, is right there being physical. That's Schuler, 8, at safety. Just good players. Him and Watts, both very good players.
They take good angles. Like, you don't see them on the wrong foot very often.
Schuler, I think, is the one that's missed more tackles for them defensively, but out of the two, and has one of the actual sort of higher missed tackle percentages, but a lot of it's just because he's very aggressive.
Aggressive is the word we keep saying.
Yep. So here we get, let's watch 44. Takes care of the edge. The other Indiana's 44, my bad.
Oh, sorry. I saw a 44 and I went.
Yes. By the way, 44 in their defense is a good player. But this was when Indiana wanted to, and they tried to, they were able to seal the edge against Notre Dame's edge defenders. By the way, they didn't run this action, the rest of the game. So whatever, early second quarter, 15-ish, whatever yards they get on this play, didn't see it again, rest of the game. But 44 had the highest run block grade in the game and consistently did that in the game when they actually tried. I mean, it wasn't 4 or 5 reps, but that's one where, okay, Oscar Delp, Jurasic, Lawson Lucky, go win on the edge and jet sweep stuff. I think you're going to see Georgia run the jet sweep and try to do these sort of things, have play action off of that, try to get, because of the propensity to play man with the combination of ability to block the edge, you can get some. I think they can get explosives in the run game.
I want to see that jet reverse to Dylan Bell. I think getting the ball in his hands, open field, maybe you can. The question is, like, if Notre Dame's aggressive on that, do you block well enough to let people get to the edge? Because if you do, to your point, and you're able to get behind that, that's how you get some big explosives against a team like this. But
yeah,
take some.
In the end,
winning your job.
In the end, this game comes down to who can run the ball. And maybe, by the way, maybe neither team can very well. I would I would put sort of my lean on Georgia because of I think they can win against their front six. But if neither team can run the ball and you got to put the game in the QB's hands, then coin flip, absolute coin flip. Georgia runs the ball. I think they win by 10 plus.
And the hesitation I have is that same fact, because I think you're right. Georgia has not consistently run the ball all year. No. That has not been the team's identity. Does that change in 3 weeks with the quarterback change? It totally can. And you saw some signs late against Texas, and you've seen signs with ETN when he's back in there that, okay, like this is working a little bit. I think Freeling at left tackle has helped in that regard in the last month of the season. Tate Ratledge coming back halfway through obviously makes the team better. But Georgia running the ball has not been something that has scared teams most of the year. And when Georgia has needed to gain yards, it leaned on Carson Beck and downfield passing. So we've spent on this channel, on Film Don't Lie, we spent 8 weeks trying to discover what Georgia's offensive identity is. And now it's going to be something different.
Yep.
Because it has to be.
Like, ideally, to me, this game, if you're for Georgia to dominate, to win this game by 10 plus, 7 plus, over a touchdown type thing, Frazier and ETN got to combine for like 35 touches.
No cash?
Running and receiving.
No cash?
I mean, on third, not as much because then you're in third down.
Yeah.
So I more first and second down with those guys. So I think if those guys get 35 touches, things are going to be just fine for Georgia.
I have one question for you.
That's still an if. That's still an if, and as long the quarterback has to take care of the ball when it does put in the air.
And we just saw a weekend of non-competitive football. It seems like this is going to be a competitive game one way or the other. If a team were to dominate, Georgia has the roster. Like, Georgia has more depth and more overall talent than Notre Dame. So if it gets lopsided, everything about how football operates says Georgia's probably going to be the one to do that.
And you never know because, look what Kevin Jennings did.
Yeah.
The dude was the best player on the field. It happened to just be for the other team. Unfortunately, stuff like that can happen. Then all of a sudden you go from what should have been a game to completely lopsided game.
I have one question to wrap this for you, and I'll tell you that question after we discuss the people who make this show free for all of you who are watching. And I was going to start with ASW Distillery. Man, they make the Fiddler Bourbon, which is it's a great product. Brent, a lot of times people say real bourbon has to be made in Kentucky. I'm telling you that this distilled right here in Georgia is really, really good. And it's distilled by dogs. 5 of the 6 founders at ASW are UGA grads. So that's why they say they are distilled by dogs and why they support what their product with Georgia. So if you buy the Hunker vodka or the Hunker bourbon, anytime that's purchased, portion of the proceeds go to Georgia's NIL efforts through Classic City Collective. So that's an easy switch that you can make in your spirits purchasing that helps the Georgia Bulldogs. ASW Distillery. Man, if you want to celebrate the new year right, make sure that you have that in your cabinet. And then if you're grilling at all, I know it's been cold outside, but if you want to crank up the grill and stay warm there, Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce can make anything that you're cooking taste fantastic. The Georgia Sweet Peach is the newest product they have out. So if you want to get just that little sweet taste, I think it'd be great on just wings, tossing get the wings in a smoker, toss them in the Georgia Sweet Peach. That's probably what I'm going to be trying in the new year, Brent, because you brought me the bottle of the Georgia Sweet Peach that Oconee Gold sent us, and I can't wait to try that. So in the new year, I'm going to do that. I may have to call you over and see if we can do a live FDL and eat some wings.
There we go.
Not at the same time. That would not be good television. No. And Breda Pest Management is the official pest control of the Georgia Bulldogs. They protect Sanford Stadium, and they can protect your home as well. BredaPest.com. The question I have for you, I believe that the winner of Georgia and Notre Dame will be in the national championship game. I'm not a believer in Penn State, regardless of what we just saw, because of what you also just said, is that Kevin Jennings was very helpful for Penn State. Do you agree with me?
No, I don't, because I think Aller can make plays, and Warren is just a singular force for them, and so is Abdul Carter. They just have those two guys are really, really good. I mean, Warren is so tough to tackle, and Oregon couldn't couldn't. It took a lot for Oregon to slow them down. So I think that game, and I'm fascinated to watch that game because Boise's had a month off, and you've given what to me is likely maybe the best player in college football a month off after like 7 out of 8 games with 30 carries in Ashton Genty. So can he actually do it against that team? And if they can, and by the way, they have Dirk Cutter as an offensive coordinator, so it's not like they don't have a guy who's schemed against difficult defenses and athletes and things like that before. So I think that game is going to be a little more interesting than maybe the spread indicates. Maybe not. Maybe it's a complete physical mismatch. That's very possible, but I don't necessarily think it will be. But no, I'm. If I said if Georgia's winning the game, I think they're winning the next game too. Yes, and when we did our prediction for the SEC championship game, I put in mine bonus prediction Georgia and Oregon for the title.
Okay, so you're not as confident that if Notre Dame were to find a way to beat Georgia, that it could beat Penn State, which is fair. And that's
that game to me is a coin flip game.
Okay. Well, if Georgia does beat Notre Dame, then we will get right back here on Film Don't Lie and have a preview of either Penn State or Boise State to introduce you to those rosters. But for now, we're going to wrap this up. Please support the people who support us. Subscribe to our channels, like our Facebook page.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to ask me if I thought Die Hard was a Christmas movie.
So I have a take on that.
Or something joke. Like that. I thought you were going to
I have a take on that
in that realm.
Because, people always ask your favorite Christmas movie, and some people jump in there with Die Hard to say that. My spin on that is to say Toy Story. Because if you remember at the end of Toy Story when he's given the
original
dog. Yeah, Toy Story 1, at the very end, they've moved into the new house, and they've given the dog, and all the toys are like freaking out about it. That's at Christmas time, right?
That is true.
Yeah. So
it's the very end, though.
It doesn't matter.
It's summer.
I mean, it takes just a sliver of something to have something about Christmas in it to make it a Christmas movie. So I'm sticking with it.
I saw someone saying that like Home Alone's actually an invasion movie or a home invasion movie that occurs on Christmas or something like that.
Is that your favorite Christmas movie, Home Alone?
I actually like the second one better.
Okay, Home Alone 2?
Yeah.
Is that your favorite overall, or is there something else?
No, like Elf is. I'll watch Elf anytime it's on. I know I can recite that movie. I watch them all. Like they're always on at our house, especially during the season. So I'm good with it. That
can be our new spinoff podcast. Which, man, you already like lead the way on this in terms of like the football chatter. If we do Films Don't Lie, then I don't watch a lot of movies. I watch a lot of like documentaries and
we could do something there. That's good title. At least
Film Don't Lie to Films Don't Lie. Thanks everybody for watching Film Don't Lie.
Yeah.
We hope you
Merry
all
Christmas.
have a very Merry Christmas, and we appreciate what you mean to us.